first of all, from the whole team of House Galleria, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation and be on a podcast and share your thoughts. So would you like to take a minute and introduce yourself to all of our viewers, like how you came into the design world, what design mean to you, and everything what you can to our viewers?
Hello, good morning. And thank you so much for asking me. It's a wonderful treat. So let me say, my name is Dee Ann Federico and my firm is Dee Ann Design. And I am on Long Island in New York. So I'm in a beautiful coastal area that actually we have not only the coast, but where I am is on the North Fork. So we have vineyards. We have a lot of different, type of topography and farms. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. So this is where I work, primarily in the coastal area of New York and also in the coastal area of California. And California is where I am from. That's where I was raised. And I still love it. Still where my family is. And so that's why I do projects there as well. Mm-hmm. Although I have to say, in terms of just doing projects in general, the gift, if you can say, of the pandemic has been that I can speak to people anywhere and I can actually work with people anywhere. I mean, this is just amazing. It truly, truly is. And I'm learning so much about, how to communicate in this like 2D, kind of world, which is, a little, it takes a little bit of getting used to really connect with other humans, but I'm getting used to it and adapting. And I think that's what we're all doing.
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm not sure where I went with that, but
and you know what you just mentioned, that this gift of pandemic, because so many of the people out there, because so many businesses have been affected, people have been seeing everything in just a negative light. But I think there is always a bright side of the coin. And what you just mentioned, that now, because when I talk to so many designers, people are saying that now more and more people are coming because they have to spend more time at their home. So they want their homes to be much better. So there is always a brighter side of the coin, and it is our choice to like how we look at it. So thank you, because you just mentioned that there can be a brighter side to the pandemic also.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely pray, all the time, constantly for this to, be at least controlled. But and so sorry for all the people who have passed from it. But what I will say is that it does give us this chance to adapt. And that's what we're here to do, really. We are adaptive like creatures. So, this is kind of, my mission. And I'm so really blessed to do something that's actually expanding as opposed to contracting. I mean, this business, just like you said, people are in their homes, they're looking for different ways to do things, and they're actually willing to sort of take some more chances, which is really, really cool too. Something they might've done that's safe before, they want to try the energy of like, you not afraid of doing it. So that's a great benefit too, because people's perspectives are changing.
Yes. And Dee, if I can take a step back and if I can ask you, can you please tell me, like, how did you enter into this world of design?
Yes. Okay. So, well, I would say the first way that I entered into the world of design is that I used to draw on my clothing. And that didn't really go very well with my parents. If I had a white shirt, it was like, it's going to be, 40 different colors of markers, because that's what I did. So my parents used to get really upset about that. And then when I began to pursue a career in textile design, it was like, then they understood like what that was about. So textiles were my first design. And I worked for several different European and American companies. And we started out, painting croquis, which are the pictures of the colorways of the fabric. So you would have a picture, you would make the design, and then you would paint it with a paintbrush with watercolor. And these were like florals that had like 12 colors. I mean, 12 shades. So you had to do, 12 different pinks sometimes to get the color of a rose. I mean, so we had to literally know how to do this. And I did go to the Fashion Institute in Los Angeles, but my focus was on textile design for the garment center. So we were creating patterns for clothing. So that was in Los Angeles. And I started to work for a European, like actually one of the largest European yarn makers. Like that's where they started. Like they made the yarn for Aubusson rugs. Like this is one of the oldest, fabric and textile companies in the world. And what they decided to do was bring machines and technology that had only been available in Europe. They took over an old plant that was out of commission in South Carolina, and they brought all of the equipment and they started to produce what they had been producing in Europe. And I was fortunate enough to work for them. So that was an amazing experience for me. And I also lived and worked in Italy, in Prato, which is, the capital of textiles. And so that was also a great experience. So I did a lot of traveling in Europe for many years. And worked for, created things for, Armani, for Ralph Lauren, we worked with pretty much everyone. And we also created, this was at the European where we made the mill in the United States. We designed printed fabric, which at that time was like the height of the coolest thing. It was rayon prints, and all of our prints were on Friends all the time. So it was like, that was the ultimate. If they were wearing them on, if they were wearing our stuff on Friends, we were really happy. And that used to happen a lot. So, I had a great experience in textile design. And when I moved to New York, I worked actually again I worked for a Turkish company. So I used to travel a lot back and forth to Turkey. And I was married. And so, that job didn't work out. My boss wanted more of me than I was able to give at that particular time. And so I decided to go back to school for interior design. New York School of Interior Design, which I lived in New York City at the time. And New York School of Interior Design is one of the best, schools on the yes. I mean, I guess yes. I'm pretty prejudiced. Yes. But what happened was actually I took like 2 semesters and I absolutely loved it. And then I actually got pregnant with my son. And so I got pregnant, and then my sister had a friend who recommended, after we renovated our apartment in New York City, recommended me to do her apartment. And I was like, oh my God, am I ready to do this? And she was like, yeah, my sister, she was like, yeah, you're ready to do this. Just do it. So I took that job. And so I left school. I had my son, and I literally started that job, 2 weeks before I gave birth, but it was around the corner from me. So I was able to put my son in a stroller and walk him to the job every single day. And we did a gut renovation on a pre-war apartment on Riverside Drive in New York City. And the woman whose apartment it was a brilliant, famous concert violinist. And so she left to go to Tanglewood for the whole summer. And I literally had 3 months to do everything over. And she left one way, and when she came back, it was completely different. I mean, I just totally did the whole entire thing over. And she never asked, and she didn't, she didn't want to know. She was at Tanglewood. She was performing. She was doing her thing. And when she came home, she called me and she was crying. And I was absolutely hysterical, thinking, oh my God, she's crying because she hates it. And she just was crying because she was speechless and she couldn't believe that that was her home.
My God. And that was your first project?
My very first professional project. I mean, I had done our apartment, which was a gut renovation also, but it was a new build. So I didn't have to, do structural things. I just did, decorative things. But yeah, I mean, that was my first professional job.
But were you nervous? Were you scared that maybe you can mess up with the apartment, or like...
Totally. Absolutely. And, I had to find, I had some people that I knew from doing my own apartment, but, I had to find other people too. And New York City has a lot of constraints. I mean, I still work in New York City, but, there's supers and there's, timelines, and you have to make sure that you're not there after a certain time. Like it requires a lot more controlling a lot of different factions. So it was, and having a baby there every day. I mean, my kid, he's, now he's going to be 24, but, he literally, his first months were in this environment with like, they're hammering, they're sawing, they're painting there. And when she came home after, she saw it and she was just beyond like thrilled. It was a complete and total transformation. Just the bones of it were beautiful, but she was not using it like that at all. So when she came back, after a couple of days, I brought my son with me and she played for him a violin. I don't remember what the piece was again. And I mean, if a 3-month-old can smile, he definitely was smiling. It was the most amazing experience.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. And does your son, like, he have like he like the architecture world or design world? I'm just asking.
That's so funny. Yes, he does. He's went to school for journalism, and he actually works on a show for a network. So yeah, but he has an eye and he has an opinion. And that's wonderful, but I don't think that this is his path, but yeah, he definitely. And I have a daughter also who, yes, she also has an eye, but I don't think this is her path either.
and this is how you got your first project. But if I can ask you the story of like how you got your second project. So what's the story behind your second project?
That's such a good question too. Thank you for asking. I'm pretty sure that my second project was, at the time, we also had a house in West Hampton. So there was a person who lived across the street from me, and my house there, and they had a very big house that was actually on the water. It was probably illegal. It was like on marshland, but it was, it was a big, beautiful house. And she said, will you come over and look? And I said, yes. And then I went there, and that was probably my second job. But what happens was that I also started getting jobs from friends that, I knew that lived in Connecticut. And we, at one point, were actually going to move to Connecticut. So I was working in Greenwich, I was working in Darien, I was working in Westport. So all these communities. And so I was continuing to do that, even though I was still in New York. I just would, drive or whatever. But it was really, my business in the beginning was really word of mouth, and it still remains that way. But it's absolutely, I also had an online funnel that, would come to me, and then through House. But it's a lot of, it continues to be a lot of word of mouth. But also now we were saying Instagram is another, really powerful way to connect with people. And so yeah, I mean, it was really, for many years, it was word of mouth. But we moved out to Long Island, and we actually sold our apartment. We actually, this is actually kind of a good story too. With our apartment at the time, I told you that I'd got renovated it. And so we thought, oh, well, let's just see if, what would happen. We'll have an open house. Let's just see if, what people would say. And actually we sold it. And that was back then. I mean, that was, 25 years ago. So, and people it was immediately, purchased. It was like a bidding war. So we then moved actually out to the Hamptons as our full-time residence. And I've been here basically, ever since. But I've continued to do work in the city during this time as well.
And after you did your first project and then you started working, so was there any period of time where you go and work for maybe some other agency or some other studio, or did you venture out on your own?
No, I started, and I don't know if I would say that's the best way. I think, there were, things that I probably would have learned faster,
yes.
And had, some better understanding of if I had done that. It's just, I was basically immediately like thrust into this, situation, and I wasn't going to say no to it. So it kind of just went on, from there. I had friends that also did this, so I would, rely on them for, their, thoughts. But at the end of the day, this is really, it's been my business for, like I said, almost 25 years. And the most important thing, like we were, saying, is having this open mind and being open to these different ways of connecting with people that we can do so much better now, because we get to do this. We don't have to drive. We don't have to fly. So yeah, I'm really all about growth, continuing to grow, continuing to find new resources and new artists. And, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time. There's a lot of creativity happening. And I think even for people that didn't think that they were creative, like, who have decided that, they're ready to start, going into this creative, area.
And like, was there because you have gone and you have studied interior design, and then you started working on your own, so you didn't get a chance, because most of the time what happens is people go and work for somebody else and get the grooming done in their earlier time. But you had the job, and clearly you were busy. You were a pregnant mom, and then you were doing a lot of stuff. So like, if I can ask you, how was your learning process? Like how did you learn? Did you learn by going and talk to people who are working on the site? Like, what was your process?
That is such a good question. Yes, I asked a ton of questions. Like, I'm still like that. So it's just weird to be interviewed because I'm usually the one that's always asking questions. But I did, I watched people, I read, I just absolutely soaked up, everything that I could.
Yes.
And, it was probably annoying to certain people, because I just would keep asking questions, because I just, I needed to know. So, I mean, it wasn't as if though I was like, just, out of like, college and then trying to, go get a job. I mean, I had already worked in an industry for, more than 10 years. So I had, and it was a design industry. So I had, a good base there of at least like understanding how things work to a certain degree. But the business aspect of this, I still am learning. And that's really the truth. Like, the business part is definitely still, it's not the part that I love, that I gravitate towards. That's why having good people to help you in that area is really important. But, and I think some of that, like some of like the inner workings of how firms work, I worked in different firms. It doesn't work exactly the same. So yeah, I think I missed some of that. And so I had to ask a lot of questions. So I could learn on the, learn on the spot. because
Yes.
I had to.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'd recommend that. But
but you just mentioned that you are always asking the question, and it's strange that you are being interviewed. But I always says this to people, that the people who are very curious and who ask a lot of questions, they are the one who always get interviewed. Because in life I have seen that people who are like who are genuinely curious, they are usually at least a step ahead from the average people, because that's how you learn. Because we can see that you haven't gone and seen the structure of a corporate interior design firm, and still you today have your own practice because you have that curiosity in you. I want to mention you, like we had on a podcast one interior designer from Miami, and earlier he used to be, the way you used to be a textile designer, he was an investment banker. And in 2008 he turned from an investment banker to pursue his hobby and to pursue his passion to become an interior designer. And today he's having an amazing boutique practice in Miami Beach. And I'm so astonished because he just said that he's so curious. He's always asking questions to people that, okay, how we are going to do this, how we are going to do that. So I think being curious is, because as kids we all are curious, but when we grow up we lose that charm.
Yes. And that's where the joy is, though. Like, if you don't want to learn anymore, like to me, it's like, what do you have, what's going to get you up, in the morning?
Yes.
What's going to get you through your day? What's going to inspire you? What's going to, connect you to and put you in alignment with your path.
Yes.
And I think people now are starting to think about their path.
Yes.
And that's another, kind of gift of the pandemic, is that people are, they are starting to think about, their purpose, and their path, and, what are they here to do? And if you're fortunate enough to have not been affected gravely by this pandemic, what are you here to do?
Yes.
Because, it's finite over here on Earth. So what is your, what's your purpose? What's your plan? And I think people are thinking more about it. Everybody has to adapt. And obviously, I'm saying this for myself. People whose kids are home, and, this is a whole other, situation. And that's why I like to try to work with people in that situation too, because they need to be heard, and they need, to create spaces that are conducive to some peace. And because this has not been a particularly peaceful time.
Yes.
So we have to create our own peace. And that's a part of what I try to do with, the spiritual, blending the spiritual and the aesthetic, to, provide that for people. Because no matter what room it is, it's not just like a meditation room. Everybody doesn't have a meditation room. Anyone can make a meditation area in a room, but your rooms have to feel like they are all places where you can, feel connected and feel some peace. That's what I believe.
And for our viewers, would you like to dig a little bit deeper into your spiritual designing part, like what exactly it is and what exactly do you do? Like, do you ask questions? Do you ask, or do you just observe how they live, how they think? Like could you get a little deeper with this?
Yes, absolutely. So the spiritual practice, as it relates to my design, that really came about a few years ago when I became a prayer chaplain in my faith. And I started to see that this was really an important part of creating spaces for people, that it's not just about, pretty furniture and, of course it is that. Everyone wants something that's aesthetically pleasing to them. It's not like my style. It's, it's a reflection of their style. And everyone needs it to function. But when I first meet with people, I listen very intently to what they say to me about what their goals are, what their dreams are, because goals and dreams are not necessarily, like we want to put them together, because there's certain things that you have to have, and then there's other things that you would like to have. But, my job is to not just listen to people's thoughts that are coming out of their head, but also to try to listen to their heart. What are they really looking for in this place that they're going to live and now spend so much more time in than they ever thought that they would? So, my job is to really listen, to find out what people, want, what they need, what I can provide for them, which is, also coming into their space and practicing feng shui principles, as well as, many of these homes that I work in, especially here in the area of Long Island that I am, and also California. There were other people here before we got here, and some of these homes are very old. And so there's lots of energies that are in all of these places. And so we want to invite, the positivity of, these energies into these spaces. So, it's really important to connect that way with whatever, space you're in. So, we definitely, we do some prayer work, we do, some saging, but then we get down to the real, layouts, planning that are great for the flow, because we need to keep, energy is all, it's all about flow. Every space is all about flow. So, we basically, we kind of come in and take the temperature and get the information that we need from the humans that are going to inhabit it, but also from the space itself. And, we also try to use sustainable, excuse the, they're digging the snow because there's snow. We try to use sustainable products. So everything should be, if it's possible, not created in a way where you're creating a lot of, harm or suffering to other people or, animals. And, just using things that enhance life, not, take away from life.
And
does that make sense?
That make a lot of sense, and that's why I just want to ask you one thing, because you just mentioned that you want to bring positive energies into the space, and some houses are very old, and this is a beautiful thought, because when you are making a space, the space has to feel good. The space has to feel more energized in a positive way. So do you ever have a client where client come to you and ask that, okay, Dee, can you please, because I don't feel good in my home or in my apartment or in my office, can you please renovate it, or can you please do some changes and bring some positive energy, like by your whatever processes you follow? Do you had that kind of experiences with your clients?
Yeah. And I mean, it's getting, the more specific I am about it, the more that I am also attracting that.
Yes.
And that is what I want to attract. Like that is the client that, I want to be able to help. I mean, I would love to be able to help everyone.
Yes.
And so honestly, the more work that I get that is sustaining financially, the more able I am to actually offer this also to other people who don't think that they could use a designer.
Yes.
Or they just think that, a designer is just to tell you to throw out all your stuff and get new stuff. Or they're going to criticize you, or they're just trying to make it pretty and they don't, this is just again, like the alignment, it's aligning the, intentions of creating a space that is joyful, that is peaceful, that is connecting to the people that live in it, that connects them more together.
Yes.
So, this is my goal. And yes, people do. And I am looking forward to having, even more clients that really want that.
And I really believe that as this thought process will reach more and more people, more and more people will reach. Because I have seen many cases in parts like India where people have gone to the people who have understanding of vastu. Like vastu is a traditional way of understanding energies in the home or in the building. Like people have gone to the architects or designers who have understanding of vastu and asked them to renovate the offices because they are not having very good business, because maybe energies are not good, and they have seen the results. So I think like as more and more people, your philosophy will be accessible to more people. I'm really sure that more and more people will come with their problems to get resolved by you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that. I also have to say that last year, I was invited by my Chinese doctor who is who's an acupuncturist, but she does a particular type of acupuncture that is specifically for allergies. And I had started going to her office, and I had left some of my cards on a table that they had there. And she was not the person that had been treating me, so I had not met her. It was someone else in her office. But she called me up one day and she said, I saw your card and I know you're a patient. And she's like, I really want to talk to you. And she said, I'm not even asking any questions. She's like, I feel like I'm led to talk to you, so I'm going to. And she and I met, and she hired me on the spot. And that office is still, it's one of my favorite projects. And we had, there was a lot that was going on during that time. Her mother, actually, right after she signed the lease, her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And she actually passed while we were just finishing up the project.
I'm sorry for that.
And so that was one of those situations where, we already had a really strong spiritual connection. But one thing that we did that was one of the best things that I've ever done, and I have continued to do, is we actually wrote prayers on the plywood. So before we put the floor over it, in certain spots, in doorways, in hallways, and we knew where everything was going to be. So we put certain prayers in certain places. And this is now something that I do with regularity, because it's so important. Yeah.
This is really beautiful what you are explaining me. I mean, there are so many dimensions of designing world, and this particular dimension is very beautiful. I mean, people don't understand the value of making good things accessible. Like, to give you one example, you must have heard about Gautam Buddha, the guy who started Buddhism. So Buddhism, he started the Buddhism, but during those times there was no internet and no accessibility, so no one knew that what is. So of course he made his kind of clan in India itself, but like outside India, people don't used to know about him. But then the king Ashoka came, he and his 2 sons, and they distributed kind of the values to China, to Japan, and to many other countries who are following Buddhism. And I think the same thing internet is doing today, because internet is kind of spreading. Because I feel that suppose if I'm good at certain type of mathematics, then maybe there are 10 people who will use my mathematics in my city, but at least million people will use it all over the world. So I think the same goes with anything, because what you're explaining me, and I'm sure when people will watch this on our episode, and the story what you just shared, that the way you just wrote down the prayers on each tile before you laid down, this is really beautiful, that you actually can create a space which is positive, not just good looking, and people can have the impact in their lives.
Yes. And this is this was meant to be a healing space. So it needed to, have that, but that was specifically, but now I find that, this needs to be in every space, because we are all experiencing, for the first time in history, we are all experiencing, because of the internet, this global health crisis. And as humans, as humanity, it's never been possible to be experiencing the same thing at the same time, ever. So it's really, this is just like, this is a moment in time that you can't even grasp it because we're still kind of in it, although we're getting some distance from it. But it is such an incredible opportunity to be connected in our humanity right now, because this is all just physical, and we're all like, subject to, the physical. So it's really just a beautiful time. But, I'm so glad that we talked about that project. I mean, it's really heartbreaking, but her father, her parents had been married for like 50 years. And, her mom died, and then her dad was like, okay. And he was a wonderful guy. And I got really close with him too. He literally last week just passed from the exact same thing. The exact stage 4 lung cancer. He didn't seem like he was having any problems at all. And then he just passed from that. So, this is again, like, this is the reminder. I mean, so now, like, all the angel wings and things that I put in that office, now we're going to need to put, another pair in there for him. But it's just, this is why we have to do work that's meaningful. It can't just be stuff. It has to have meaning. I mean, and it has to support us, like inside, not just from the outside, from the inside.
Yes. I mean, that's what the beauty of design world is, that if you put the meaning to it, it can change your life. I was talking to one very famous architect from Paris, and he told me that, Shivam, when artificial intelligence and all of these things are coming, these things can come and make my drawings, but these things cannot make my design. Because he said that maybe I get certain thoughts when I'm just lying down on my bed, or maybe I'm lying down on the beach, and then I got the thought that, okay, I should make a roof which is sloped at 60-degree angle. So no artificial intelligence or anybody can do that. So what you are doing, I'm saying, it's not possible for every human to do that, to have that kind of feeling internally, because I think certain things you can't fake. If that comes from inside of your heart, then only you can bring that kind of tangible value in somebody's life.
Thank you. I really, it's wonderful to hear that. And I do feel that. I mean, that is, I just feel like I just am like the vessel. So I'm, speaking whatever, whatever is coming out. But I love what you just said about that, because there is no way to quantify this. And this is something that has, been vexing for people in interior design and architecture for centuries. You can try to quantify it and put a number on it. But even if you track all your hours and, you do all that stuff, the stuff that happens in the process, it's just like he's saying, you're laying down, you're like, you're doing this. It's like, if you have to be able to open yourself up to the flow of creativity.
Exactly.
So that's and again, it's like, it's a process. It doesn't just like happen, like it evolves. So yes, you have to have a basic idea, you have to have a basic plan, but what happens in between what you plan and then the actual finished product is not necessarily the same. Can I give you an example of that?
Sure, please.
Okay, so I'm just finishing up a project right now, which is actually, it's a second project for a family that I did the whole the upper levels of their house, and then they wanted to do the basement. And I mean, I do not mean to be a bummer, and I swear I don't know why this happens, but during the first project, the husband actually was diagnosed with cancer. And so they were not around very much, because that happens with a lot of my clients, because I'm out here at the beach, they're, at home in New York, and they don't have to come back and forth all the time, because that's, I'm here to be here. So they had wanted to do the basement. They knew they wanted to do it a couple of years ahead, down the road. And so he passed last year. I mean, just, it's so heartbreaking. But they decided that since they all were moved out here, like the kids had moved out, but they were now back and living with their mom, and they wanted to live at the beach. So they wanted to do this basement project. So I said, okay. And I mean, this is, you know, it's like, it's not, you know, you think of a basement, this is really, it's really beautiful. I mean, I did it, you know, really, you know, very coastal, very light, very, you know, I did paneling in their whole upstairs. And so I found wallpaper actually from Philip Jeffries, going to give them a shout out, that looks like paneling. And so I did that downstairs. So what happened was, in order to be able to work in this space and get the kind of cabinetry that they needed in a very narrow space, we needed to get a large sofa, a large sectional, and cabinetry in the space. So I had to use upper cabinetry, because upper cabinetry is about a foot deep. So I had to use upper cabinetry in a place that wasn't upper, which is like on the floor. So that means that the top is completely unfinished. So I have these 3 cabinets, the top's unfinished, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do for the top? Like, I have to figure something out. You can't just, you know, I'm not just going to throw a piece of like white wood on it. Like it has to be finished. So I thought and I thought and I thought, and like, I still wasn't sure. And was I going to do stone? And was I going to do this? And was I got like a, you know, live edge? Like, what was I going to do? And so I finally went to my stone guy, and I originally thought I was just going to do like white, you know, simple, like, you know, quartz or something. And he had this remnant. And I actually, like, at first I wasn't sure about it. And then I went back a second time and I was like, yes, this is the thing. It literally looks like the beach. There's like, it looks like the sands, and there's like, you know, it almost looks like little pieces of glass in it. And he literally, it's 108 inches long by 12 inches deep. I mean, he just happened to have this very long piece. And I just know, like, this is the thing, like, this was the touch. And I honestly felt like, you know, this was like John, this was the husband, like going, oh, here's a really special thing. Let's use this. And so they haven't seen it yet. They won't be back until Saturday, but I'm really excited for them to see it, because like, this is the thing. I mean, otherwise it's pretty white and gray, but this is like a focal point, and it's just like, it's perfect. And, you know, we get excited when like, you just find that thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is, I didn't know that thing existed 3 months ago. I had to actually find it.
This is really beautiful. And this shows that when we are trying something which comes exactly from our heart, then things like comes into the pieces, like the puzzle solve itself. So this your story, this proves this. And these are real life stories. And when we are just talking right now, there are millions of people who can learn a lot from these stories, that when we want to do something, we want to deliver something really extraordinary, then things comes. And I don't think that, I feel that there are not enough people trying just from their heart. We just don't need to fake anything. Just if we are trying from our heart, things will happen, I think. What do you think?
100%. I couldn't think it anymore. It is true. I mean, that's truth. So what's truth? You know, like, I believe, like, you know, the heart is the truth. So if I believe that, then I kind of can't go wrong. Like, you know, that's how I get to be aligned, is like, if I'm truthful all around to everyone. And that's also very difficult to do in this job, because part of this job is to be like the puppet master. You've got your contractors, your vendors, everyone over here, they have their needs, they need your direction. Then you have your clients who want from you, you know, and this is a very much a middle position. And it is extremely stressful, but it's a lot less stressful if you just tell the truth. And this is something that it has taken me 25 years to learn. You know, it is a juggling act. That's the truth. But in trying to shield like clients, you're not really helping. You're not. I mean, like, if everybody just is open in their communication and says, I can't do it by then, but here's when I can do it. And everyone just, you know, no one feels afraid or like they can't say what the truth is. And this is a really important lesson to anyone who's listening, and especially young designers, you know, starting out. Like, you know, we feel like we have to make up a story, but we don't. You know, the truth is so much better.
I mean,
even if it's not what you want to hear, it's better.
Yes. I mean, you have seen 25 years in this industry. So if you have to share three advices with the young designers, because you just said that we have to be true what is happening, and maybe we need a better way of communicating things, because there are very ways to saying things, because I don't have to be rude, but I have to be truthful about what I'm saying. So like if you as an experienced person have to share three pieces of advice with people who are coming out of universities and art schools, what will you share?
Another great question. Well, first thing I would share is, do as I am sharing, but don't do as I did. Like I would say, if somebody has an opportunity to go and work, in a firm, even though I'm not sure how many are in person at this time. But I feel like if you can get that experience, that's actually a really good thing to do. So I would say, instead of just stepping out on your own, like right away, go get some actual experience that, you're going to get paid for, and you're going to learn,
Yes.
So I would definitely recommend that if you can do that, do that.
Yes.
Make that list of the places, like the dream places that you'd love to work, or the places that, the designers that you'd love to work with, and reach out, because you don't know. Yes. So that would be my first thing. That second thing definitely is tell the truth. And part of that is in the communication skills. And one thing that, they're going to come out right now and is reality, for me, when I started, there was no such thing as texting. Or anything like that. I mean, I used to send my clients literally Polaroid photos. If I was out shopping, like that was the highest tech that I could do, was to take the pictures, put them in an overnight, and send them to them so they could see them the next day. Like that was how we could do stuff like back then. But once texting started and people just felt like they could just constantly like text you, if once you have your business, you have to set up parameters, and that is really important to do. Like in your communication, it's far better to write an email after you've had some time to think about it. Because, that's the second thing that I would definitely say is don't react. You don't want to be in the reacting. Yes. You want to be in the, not in the first thought, because the first thought is like panic, like, oh my God, what I do? It's the second thought, in that first thought, okay, I know what this is. This is like monkey brain, just reacting. And then, you can say like, I'm just seeking guidance. Even if you don't believe in God or any other entity, just say like, please help. I don't even know what to do. And then switch it over to an email where you have some time to actually formulate what you want to say. And something I just learned recently, this is amazing. Like after 25 years, the email updates to clients should actually be like one day that you devote to that, or 2 days. Every day, it's not necessary. Like, and we make the parameters. So if we teach our clients to be constantly asking us questions, that's what they're going to do. So that's really important. The third thing is, this should be your passion. Have passion about it. Have curiosity about it. Stay inspired. Seek inspiration. Seek connection to your fellow designers, to artisans. This is really important because it's very easy to get like focused on what you're doing and not do that. But we need creative fuel. And so you have to make sure that you continue to get it. Was that 3?
Yes. Okay. It's like, thank you so much for sharing all of these advices, because I really believe that all of these 3 advices are completely perfect for anybody who's coming out of a university or art school, because you need to develop these things. Otherwise, it's very hard to sustain in this hard design world, because people are not gonna come knock on your door on a very first day. You have to build certain things, certain character in order to sustain. And what's the importance of patience, because you have been for more than 2 decades in the industry. Like if you want to succeed, as I'm talking completely financially. So like, what is the importance of patience, if you can share with our viewers who are young, budding designers who are coming out of the colleges?
Oh my gosh, patience is huge. It is. And this is about, just like the creative process is a process, so is the building of, your business. And it is not just a straight up trajectory. Like, you have to have some plan for, times when it may not be as busy. We didn't know when the pandemic hit that wasn't going to be the ends of everything. I mean, there was no work going on. Like we couldn't even finish projects. So definitely be patient. Do what's right in front of you. Focus on that. And the next steps will continue, and you will be able to build on them. But if you just first only look over there and just, think that that's what you want and that's what you're going to get, you miss a lot of the steps that you need to do this, this building. Like if you're not trying to just make a quick, buck, then that it's a process. And I think it's hard now too, because your generation and these, kids are coming out and they are looking at all the ways that it seems like you can make a quick buck. And I'm not saying don't take advantage where you can, but the bottom line is you always got to think that, you're building. Look at it as this process, or there's steps. You're going up, and you can't just look from the bottom of the staircase and be transported up to the top step. You literally have to walk each step. So when you skip steps, that's when you have issues. And that's why I'm saying, go get a job somewhere first and learn the steps. You don't have to learn them as painfully as I did, and falling down a bunch of times before you, before you get there.
I mean,
I wouldn't trade my experience for anything, but yes.
I mean, this is very true. The guy who have got his hand burned always says that, okay, this is hard way to understand that the fire is hot. So what I'm sharing, that you should not touch it to get the experience. So I think what you are saying, that maybe what it took you to learn, let's say you learn something in 3 years, that can be learned easily in 4 months or 6 months or 7 months, because you directly get access to so many resources. And when you are on your own, the process is a little hard and harsh.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And again, you need, though, your part is not only are you just showing up and getting paid to learn, your part is to actually learn. Don't pay attention, be there fully, do as good a job as you can do. And then, and then spend the rest of your time learning. Like you're going to make the most of that place that you go to work. You're not just trying to get from them. You're also trying to participate and give them something, but you are there to learn. So don't just show up because it's a safe thing to do to go work for a firm. No, you want to get the most out of it, and you want to give the most that you can.
So Dee, now we are in the final part of this podcast where we play a quick fun game with our guest. Okay. London or Paris?
Paris.
New York or LA?
Probably New York still.
Modern or contemporary?
Modern.
BMW or Mercedes?
Mercedes.
Whiskey or vodka?
Of course I don't drink, but back in the day, I want to say whiskey.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this was very fun time talking to you, and I really hope that our viewers will enjoy it as much as I enjoy talking to you.